Hi yogis, welcome to Stretchy Cat Yoga. In today's routine, we're going to be focusing on a power yoga sequence. So if you're looking for something that's more rest and restorative, this is not the right routine. Go ahead and choose another one. If you do enjoy today's routine, you can find me on Instagram at Stretchy Cat Yoga, and there's a few like mini tutorials on there that you'll find as well as updates and things for my new series. And you can always find me on Burn Along. I'm a coach on there, and it's again Stretchy Cat Yoga. So I hope you enjoy your routine. Go ahead and grab your yoga mats and let's get started. We're going to start an easy pose today. So come to a comfortable seated position. You can have your hands down on your knees or you can have them up to receive. We're going to start with some neck rolls. So eyes can be open or closed. And all you want to do is start by dropping your chin down to your chest. Roll over up to the right, and you can come halfway up and then turn and switch to go to the other direction. And start to focus on your breathing. So on your exhale, drop your head down. On your inhale, bring it up to the other side. And if you want, you can keep going like this. You also have the option on your next rotation to go all the way around to neck circles, rotating your head up to the sky and back down. We're going to start, if you choose that option, just continuing in one direction for a few circles. And when your chin comes to your chest, go ahead and reverse, go the other direction, moving to the left now. And still controlling your breath with each rotation. On your next exhale, go ahead and stop with your chin on your chest. Bring your chin to level. We're going to do just a few neck stretches. So go ahead and start by, you can use your hand if you would like. Rotate your ear, your right ear, towards your right shoulder. And I like to add a little bit of pressure from my hand to stretch my neck a little bit extra. And release. Go ahead and switch to the other side, bringing that left ear down to your left shoulder. And release. We're going to start warming up the body, so go ahead and come to tabletop position. You want to make sure your hands are stacked, or your wrists are stacked directly under your elbows and your shoulders, and everything's aligned. Same thing with your knees. You want them directly under your hips, and you want your back to be flat to start. So for this one, on your inhale, you're going to push your chest and heart forward. You're going to arch your back, and then on your exhale, you're going to curl your spine, coming into cat. So inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. And exhale, cat. We're going to do it 2 more times, moving at your own breath speed. And go ahead and come to tabletop position. Now what we're going to do is rotate our hips in circles, so kind of warming up the body just a bit. You can also use this time to do any additional stretches that you feel like you might need before we get started. And feeling that rotation in both your hips as you rotate across down to your knees and your feet, as well as your shoulders and your wrists. And take one more rotation before you come to a stop, and then go ahead and reverse and come back the other direction. And last one, go ahead and come to a stop. Okay, so we're going to start by getting into some core work. Since we're in tabletop, the first thing I'm going to have you do is go ahead and curl your toes under and lift your knees off of the mat just 1 or 2 inches. We're going to come into hovering tabletop position. This is a great core workout to get started, and it's really easy to do. Take a few deep breaths. All right, good. Go ahead, drop your knees down. We're going to come into a traditional plank now. So step back into plank. Make sure that your shoulders are stacked over your wrists again here. Take a few deep breaths. And then take your right hand, put it in the center. Turn your body over to the side. We're coming into side plank, and you want to stack your feet and push your hips up towards the sky. So pull your hips here. If there's an imaginary string pushing your hips up towards the sky here. And come back to center. You're going to then put your left hand in the middle. I'm going to turn around to face you. And we're going to do the same thing where you pull your hips up to the sky and stretch for side plank. All right, good. Go ahead and drop your knees for just a second. Have a tiny rest. We're going to do a few more moving at breath speed, and then we're going to switch to fallen triangle. So come up to plank and inhale, side plank. Exhale, back to plank. Inhale, other side. Exhale, back to plank. Inhale, side. Exhale, plank. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. All right, this time, go ahead, kick your foot through on your exhale, coming into fallen triangle. Back to plank, and kicking that foot through. Maintain your breathing here. Be really careful to take your deep breaths. And go ahead, push back into downward facing dog. Since this is our first downward facing dog of the day, you can feel free to pedal out your dog, kind of stretch out your legs a bit. They might be a little bit tight. And on your inhale, lift those heels up to the sky and then push down, releasing. And one more, up and down, pushing your chest back towards your thighs here. Okay, good. We're gonna try something a little different. So this next move is kind of like a crunch, except that you're not on your back. So come into a forearm plank. You can either have your hands clasped like this, or you can have them straight out like that. So keep your toes lined up, and then you're gonna push back into dolphin and come forward to forearm plank. Exhale, dolphin. Inhale, forearm plank. And moving at breath speed, go ahead and continue. All right, in your plank, go ahead and push up to regular plank, push back into downward facing dog, then lift your right foot high to the sky, coming into three-legged dog. Bring that knee to your elbow and pump for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back up. You can open up your hip. And if it's in your practice, we're going to go ahead and flip your dog into a wild thing and stretch back, feeling that stretch in your abs as you push your abs up towards the sky. And slow and controlled, using a side plank to transition back to downward facing dog. Lift your left leg up high to the sky. And you're going to bring that knee to your elbow and pump for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back up to three-legged dog. Feel that stretch. And flip your dog if you did on the other side. And slow and controlled, come back to your downward facing dog. Okay, from your downward facing dog, go ahead, drop your knees. Send your knees out to the mat wide and put your forehead down towards the mat, reaching your arms forward, coming into child's pose. Take just a few breaths here for a little break before we get into our next flow. And reach your arms forward just a little bit more, making this an active stretch here. All right, go ahead, push back into downward facing dog. We're going to start on the right side, so coming into three-legged dog, bring that knee to your elbow and pump for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back up, this time knee to nose, stepping it all the way through into crescent. And if you need to, you can make a few adjustments here. If you need this leg to come further forward, that's fine. If you need less of a stretch or if you want more, go a little bit deeper. But make sure this hip is facing forward and your arms or your shoulders are away from your ears as you look forward. Then pivot that back foot, opening up to warrior two, keeping your arms teed out, looking over your front fingertips. And straighten that front leg, shift your hips back. We're gonna come into triangle pose. Now make sure you're not dumping into the pose. You wanna pull up towards the sky, keeping your heart open, using your obliques on the side here to pull up towards the sky. And extend it back up. What you're going to do now is pivot your feet out so your toes are facing about a 45-degree angle. We're going to come into goddess pose, and I am going to start in prayer pose, but we're actually going to do a few side crunches with a sharp exhale of breath with each one. So put your hands behind your head, and on each side crunch, you're just going to ch through your teeth. Ch, 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 ch. Okay, good. Come back to that warrior two. Come to extended side angle. Reverse that warrior. You can take the bind if you like. And then we're going to come back to extended side angle. If you want to take the double bind, you can reach back and grab that other hand, keeping your chest forward. Take a few breaths. And exhale. And release back to warrior two. We're going to go ahead and go through our first vinyasa. So cartwheel your hands down to the mat, stepping back to plank. Shift your shoulders 2 inches forward, drop halfway down, and push up into upward facing dog so your thighs are off the mat. Take a deep inhale, and exhale, push to downward facing dog. Okay, good. We're going to do the same thing on the left side now. So lift your left leg high to the sky, knee to elbow, pump, 2, 1, and back up. And bring that knee to your nose, step it all the way through into crescent. And I'm going to turn to face the other direction, so I'm facing you. Keep those hips forward, shoulders away from your ears, and open up to warrior two, looking over those fingertips. Straighten that front leg. We're going to come into triangle, so shift your hips back, then your torso forward. And remember, you're opening your chest, you're pulling up towards the sky, not dumping into that stretch. More of a reach towards the sky. And rotate back up. Adjust your feet so that both of your toes are pointing out at a 45-degree angle. And you're going to come into goddess pose. Drop it as low as you can. Hands behind your head for those side crunches. Ch, 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 come back to warrior two, and one time extended side angle. Reverse that warrior, taking the bind if you did on the other side, and go ahead and take that extended side angle again, taking the double bind if you did on the other side, keeping that chest open. Good. Come back to that warrior two. We're going to cartwheel our hands down to the mat, going through our vinyasa one more time. Shift it forward, upward facing dog, and meet in downward facing dog. All right, we're going to go through that flow one more time, but moving at breath speed this time. So lift that right leg high to the sky. Bring that knee to your elbow. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back up, knee to nose. Coming into crescent. Inhale. Exhale, warrior two. Extended side angle. Reverse warrior. And back, taking that double bind. Now come back to warrior two. Straighten that front leg. Shift it back. Triangle. Up. Coming into goddess. Watch those feet. And then back to warrior two before you cartwheel your hands back down to the mat. Now on the left side, left leg to the sky. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back up and step it through into warrior two, or sorry, crescent. Into crescent, open up to warrior two. Extended side angle, reverse that warrior, taking the double bind, and bring it back to warrior two. We're going to shift into triangle, bringing it back up, warrior two, or sorry, goddess pose, into warrior two. Now go ahead and go through your vinyasa. And meet in downward facing dog. Take a nice deep inhale and stay for the slow exhale. And one more. All right, we're gonna do a few sun salutations. So bend your knees, and on your next inhale, you can hop, step, or float to the front of your mat. Coming into halfway lift, and folding forward, drop your head to the mat for forward fold. Halfway lift, keep your back straight, looking down at the mat. And forward fold, you can bend your knees, drop the crown of your head down to the mat. Now reverse swan, your hands up to mountain, keeping your shoulders down away from your ears. Dive it down for forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, forward fold, and step back into plank, lowering all the way down to the mat, pushing up to upward facing dog, and push back, downward facing dog. And hop, step, or float to the front of your mat. Halfway lift, forward fold, reverse swan, those hands up to mountain, dive it back down to forward fold. Halfway lift, forward fold, step it back to plank, go through your vinyasa. Good, bend at the knees, hop, step, or float to the front of your mat. Halfway lift, forward fold, reverse swan, those hands up to the sky. Keep your shoulders away from your ears. Push everything down into a forward fold. Halfway lift, drop it to forward fold, coming into plank. Lower it halfway down, push up into upward facing dog, and push back into downward facing dog. We're going to do that one more time. So moving at your own breath speed this time. I'm not going to say it, just going to follow along with you. So bend at the knees, hop, step, or float to the front of your mat. Halfway lift. And hop, step, or float to the front of your mat again. Okay, coming into halfway lift, drop into forward fold, rising up to mountain pose. We're now going to do a few of our own routines here. So from mountain, we're going to, you can keep your feet hip distance apart. We're going to take a wide chair. So go ahead and push back like you're going to sit down in a chair. Your heels should have all the weight. You can lift your toes up off the mat to be sure, and you can reach up. You can also keep your hands in prayer pose if you would like. It's up to you what you prefer. And back to mountain. We're going to come into a few balancing poses now. So we're going to start first by planting our left foot in the mat. We're going to come into a warrior 3. So there's a few options of what you want to do for your warrior 3 arms. You want to find a spot on the ground to focus on, and then you can reach your arms forward. You can airplane them back. You can keep them in prayer. It's up to you. But find a spot on the ground that's not moving and tilt forward slowly. And just keep your eyes on that while you balance and focus on that dot. Take some grounding breaths here. Good, and slow and controlled, go ahead, release it back down to the mat. You can roll out that ankle if you need to, but we're going to do a few more balancing poses on this side. So I'm going to actually face you for the next one. Next, what we're going to do is tree. So tree has several variations. If you want, you can just bring your foot to your ankle. Do not put your foot on your knee no matter what. If you want, you can also put it on the inside of your thigh, or if you're like me and you like to bring it to your hip to get a hip stretch or a glute stretch, then you can do that. Hands can come to heart center. You can do a reverse prayer if you would like, or if you want more of a challenge, you can grow your branches. If you want even more of a challenge, you can close your eyes while you're balancing, and that brings a whole new element to it. So choose the one that's right for you and take some grounding breaths. And slow and controlled, go ahead and release back down to the ground. We're now going to come into eagle pose. So take your right foot, cross it over your left. You're going to bend at the knees. You can kickstand it down if you would like. You can also take the double bind by pushing it behind your calf. And then for your arms, you can keep them in prayer or cross them, taking the double bind right in front of you, and you want to pull everything towards the center of your body. So even though you can't see my face, my arms are pulled towards the center of my body and my spine and aligning, and you should feel a good stretch through your shoulders here. Take a few breaths. And release. Okay, we're going to do one more balancing stretch on this side before we switch to our left. So for this, we're going to come into dancer. So go ahead, put your arms forward, bring your right arm down to your hip. You're going to kick your foot back, grabbing for the inside of your arch, and then find that spot that you used for warrior 3 to balance again as you kick forward into dancer. If you fall out of the pose at all, just come back into it. It's totally fine. And slow and controlled, bring it back down, rolling out that standing leg finally. We're going to switch to our other side. So we're actually going to come back to mountain for a minute. So shoulders away from your ears. Come back to that chair pose, wide-legged chair pose. Make sure that you can see the front of your toes and that your weight is on your heels. Sit down just an inch or two lower. And back to mountain. Okay, we're going to start with warrior 3 again. So plant your right foot in the ground. Find a spot that you're going to focus on to keep you balanced. And when you're ready, whichever position that you used for your hands last time, go ahead and shift it forward, focusing on your dot. And release. All right, we're going to come into tree pose now on the other side. So whichever variation, whether it was your ankle, your thigh, not your knee, or your hip, you're gonna take that same thing again. So bring your foot to wherever you would like, and then whatever you do with your hands, try to do the same thing on this side as well. Sometimes one side of our body can be tighter than the others, or can't quite balance as well, depending on the day. That's fine if you need to modify on this one as well. And slow and controlled, go ahead and release. What you're going to do now is the same thing as we did on the other side, eagle pose. So planting your right foot down in the ground, you're going to cross over and then bringing your left arm underneath your right. You're going to take the double bind, pulling everything towards the center of your body. And take some deep breaths here. And release. Okay, we're going to come to our last pose, which is dancer. So extend your arms forward. Bring your left arm to your hip. Kick back your left foot. And then finding that dot that you are focusing on, shift it forward. And release, slow and controlled. Go ahead, roll out that standing leg. Back to mountain. We're gonna go through that one more time, but not hold them for quite as long. We're gonna move at breath speed. So drop into chair pose, come back to mountain. You're gonna plant your left leg, shift forward to warrior three. Inhale and exhale. Now we're going to come into tree pose, so lift that foot. Inhale and exhale. Now eagle, cross that foot over. Take your right hand underneath, crossing your left arm over for eagle. And release. Raise both your hands. Find that dot and shift it forward. If you fall out of it, like I just did, just come back to it. And come back to mountain, chair pose, mountain. We're going to do the same thing on the other side now. So back to that warrior three, shifting forward. And exhale, release. Coming into tree pose. Exhale, release. Coming into eagle. This time cross your left underneath your right. And release. For dancer on the left. Kick back, finding that spot for balance. Good. So now come to standing mountain, facing forward. You can keep your arms down at your side this time. Take an inhale. Stay for the exhale. One more inhale. And exhale. Go ahead, come down to forward fold, bending at the knees if you need to, dropping the crown of your head down to the mat. Reverse swan, your hands up to the sky. Push your hips forward, cactus your arms for a baby back bend. Push them up, down to forward fold, and halfway lift, forward fold. Okay, go ahead, coming into plank, and take a deep inhale. Stay for the exhale. One more inhale and exhale. Now when you're ready, on your next inhale, you're going to slowly lower all the way down to the mat. We're going to come into locust prep. So on your inhale, what you're going to do is zip your legs up and lift them off the mat as well as your arms. You're going to airplane your arms out behind you. So on your inhale, lift everything up off the mat, looking straight forward, and breathe into it. Lift just a little higher in your next inhale. And release everything down to the mat. If you want, you can turn your ear towards the mat and take a full rest here. Take a few deep breaths. We're going to do the same thing again. And on your next inhale, zip up those legs, lift everything up off the mat, and breathe into it. Up an inch higher, and release everything down to the mat. Go ahead and push back into child's pose. You can either keep your knees in if you want modified child's pose, or you can push them out to the mat, releasing your forehead down just like we did earlier. And take a minute feeling that stretch in your back and shoulders. Go ahead, push yourself up to all fours. We're going to come into camel pose. So if you are just on your knees, that's totally fine. You're going to start with your hips stacked over your knees, and then you're going to want to push your hips forward as we go back into it, but you're going to use your heels as support, so because we're coming into camel pose. So looking up to the sky, slow and controlled, use your core to kind of push yourself up, and don't let your head necessarily fall back. You want to keep it level and take several deep breaths. Okay, go ahead, release your hips down to your feet. Bring your knees together. We're going to come into rabbit pose to kind of reverse balance the stretch that we just did on our spine. So have your hands back down here by your feet and shift it forward and drop your forehead to the mat. When you're ready, lift your head. We're going to actually just flip onto our sit bone, so however you would prefer to get there, go ahead and do that. We're going to do just a last bit of core work here. So we're going to come into boat position depending on your abilities. If you want, you can keep your feet down on the mat and just reach your arms forward. Or for more of a challenge, you can lift your knees and keep them bent. You can keep your hands behind your knees like this. Option to extend your arms out. You want to make sure your back is straight no matter what you do. You can also straighten your legs and keep your arms out if you prefer. It's up to you, whatever you like to do. I like to do it this way so that I have a good form. But whatever is in your practice, feel free to do that. Or if you just want to challenge yourself today and try something that you usually don't, go ahead and do that. And take some nice deep breaths here. And if you need to do some loud releasing exhales to help with the balance, then go ahead and feel free to do that. You're at home, right? So nobody knows. And release down to the mat. We're going to do that just a few more times. So take a little bit of a rest here, and then we'll do it 2 more times before we do our inversions. Okay, on your next inhale, lift up to whatever position of boat that you had, and breathe into it. And release down to the mat. We only have 1 more to do. And on your next inhale, go ahead, lift back to that last boat. You can do it because you made it through your other 2, so you just have 1 more to do. If you need to modify for the last one, feel free to do that. And release down to the mat. Okay, go ahead, scoot forward just a bit on the mat. Extend your feet out in front of you. Extend your arms, and then slow and controlled 1 vertebrae at a time. You're going to lower as slow as you possibly can down to the mat to come to your laying position. We're going to do some inversions before the end of our practice here. So you have a few options for this. The first is if you want to do bridge. So if you would like to do bridge, you can bring your feet right below your hips just to where your fingertips are. And you're going to tuck your shoulder blades underneath and push your hips forward towards the sky. Clasping your hands together, push your hips up super, super high. This is the most basic inversion. It's the easiest one. If you want to do this bridge, then that's fine. If you want to push yourself a little further, then you can take shoulder stand. So if you want for shoulder stand, just rotate your feet up, keep your chin tucked, tuck your hands underneath your back ribs, and point in a straight line towards the sky, tucking your chin, and breathe. If you have the sun directly in your eyes like I do, just close them. And the last option is if plow pose is in your practice, go ahead and rotate your feet back over your head for a few breaths. It'll give you a really good hamstring stretch. And if you're in plow, go ahead and bring it back to shoulder and slowly lower your spine and then your feet all the way down to the mat. Tee out your arms to the side and keep your knees bent. We're going to do a couple of supine twists here. So drop your knees first to the left and keep your right arm out to the side. You're going to look over your right shoulder. Option to put your hands on your knees and push down for just a little bit more of a stretch if you would like. This stretch actually stretches more muscles than any other stretch, so it's a great one to do regularly, and it also offers a twist which will help detoxify your organs. Breathe into that twist. And bring your knees back to center. Drop them over to the other side, looking over your opposite shoulder here. You can put your hand on your knees if you did on the other side as well. And bringing those knees back to center. Option 2, bring your knees towards your chest, reaching for the outside edges of your feet, coming into happy baby. You can also extend your feet out if you want to rock a little bit, one and then the other. Nice and controlled. And come back to stillness. You're going to bring your knees into your chest, curl up into a ball, hugging everything really tight, and slowly roll forward, back and forward, until you're in a seated position. We're going to do one more twist. So extend your left foot out, and you can either keep your right foot on the inside if you feel not as flexible, or if you want to do the full stretch, cross that foot over. Extend your left arm overhead, hooking that elbow over your knee, and twist looking back over your shoulder. So inhale, lengthen, exhale, twist just a little bit deeper. And release. Go ahead and switch feet here. So your right leg's going to stay extended this time. Left foot either crosses over or bends forward, depending what you did. Raise your right hand overhead. Hook that elbow over the knee and twist back, looking over that shoulder. Inhale, exhale, twist. You shouldn't have any weight on this hand either. It should just be a core strength that you're doing, so just test it out if you need to, and then you can just keep it down for a little bit of extra balance. And release. Okay, last pose that we're going to do, I'm just going to have you flip over, coming into downward facing dog so that we can get some pigeons in to stretch out our glutes. So lift your right leg towards the sky, bringing that ankle to your left wrist to form a figure 7. You can put your foot down, pointing straight back. If you want, you could stay here in pigeon, or if you would like, you can make a pillow with your arms and drop your head into a sleeping pigeon. This will give you a little bit more of a stretch. If you want more, you can come into king pigeon. So bend your back foot, hook your elbow through it, taking the double bind, reaching your hand overhead, and reach for that foot. And release. Same thing, push back into downward facing dog. We're going to do the same thing. Left leg towards the sky, bring that towards your right wrist. Option to do the same thing that you did on the other side if you stayed in this pigeon, or if you went to sleeping pigeon, go ahead and take that. If you took king pigeon on the opposite side, go ahead, take the double bind and do that again. and release. Okay, pushing back into downward facing dog. You're going to feel that stretch one more time in the backs of your legs, then drop to your knees and extend your knees out wide. We're going to come into child's pose, which will be our last pose of the practice. So take a deep, deep inhale and exhale everything out into the mat. One more deep inhale and exhale. Now go ahead and just breathe normally, releasing any tension that you have or stress from the day into the mat. Offer yourself gratitude for taking time to do this routine today and making time for yourself. An option to stay in child's pose for as long as you need. I am done for the day, so thank you for joining me. Don't forget to find me on Instagram at Stretchy Cat Yoga and look for me on Burn Along. My channel is also called Stretchy Cat Yoga. Bye.